Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I come to the floor with my colleague from Wyoming, Senator Cynthia Lummis, to mourn one of Wyoming's most beloved and fiercest champions. Passed earlier this morning, that would be former U.S. Senator Al Simpson. Not just former senator, former member of the Wyoming House of Representatives, former Army veteran, passed away earlier today at the age of 93 in his hometown of Cody, Wyoming. Talked to his wife, Ann, this morning. She said it was a beautiful full moon, and Al went to heaven on a moonbeam. He's known in Wyoming and in this body and across the country for his incredible life of service and really an unparalleled sense of humor. Throughout his life, Al boldly fought to uphold the values and the ideals of this great nation. Whether he was serving in the Army or the Wyoming House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate, his commitment and his contributions were evident everywhere. He was well known for rolling up his sleeves, working with anyone, regardless of party, to do what he thought was best for Wyoming and the nation. When the nation called on Al Simpson, when they called on him to serve, he was always there fighting for our best interests. Al once said, "Never let them distort who you are." So let me tell you about the real Al Simpson. His life, his legacy are defined by the C's, C standing for his hometown of Cody, and collegiality is a big part of it. But also there was courage, character, and credibility. He represented Wyoming in this chamber of the United States Senate from 1979 to 1997. And for that reason alone, Al looms very large in Wyoming's political history. There's a lot more. He left an indelible mark here in the Senate. While others ran from tough issues, Al welcomed them. It was an opportunity to serve him. He actually never backed down from a fight. He embraced the fights as long as he was fighting for what he thought was right. He sponsored legislation that helped protect our clean water and our clean air. He secured better grazing rights for Wyoming farmers and ranchers. He fought to secure our borders and imposed stiff sanctions on employers who hired illegal immigrants. He once said, "The first duty of every nation is to secure its borders." He was so right. He was elected by our Republican conference in the Senate in 1985 to serve as the assistant Republican leader. He was the first Republican whip from the state of Wyoming. He was the whip for 10 years, did it under the leadership of Senator Bob Dole. So I'm proud to hold the office today that he once held. His leadership brought Wyoming values to Washington, and he has had a lasting national input. Al came from a family of public servants. His father, Millward, was both Wyoming governor and senator. His dad, Millward, was Al's role model for public service and civic leadership. His big brother, Pete, once explained the extent to which we became men we owe to our father. Everyone who knew Al well knows that his most important influence of his life came from the love of his life, his wife, Ann, and it's his wife of 70 years. Al and Ann first began dating when they were students at the University of Wyoming. They were married in 1954. For 7 decades, Wyoming was fortunate to listen to and learn from Al and from Ann. They were an inspiration to all of us. They were to me, to my wife Bobby. They were, I know, to Cynthia, to her husband Al. They made a legendary team, always working together to make both Wyoming and Washington a better place. Al liked to say everything in Wyoming is political except for politics, which is personal. Yet for Al, politics was never personal. His debates were passionate and they were principled, but he was friends with Ted Kennedy. They collaborated together on legislation. From energy to border security to fiscal responsibility, Al worked across the aisle to tackle the tough issues. He always did what he believed was best for the country. In today's political environment, Al's example of bridging partisan divides is more important than ever. In the art of persuasion, Al Simpson could teach a master class. One reason Al was so persuasive was his humor. He had an incredible sense of humor. He had close personal relationships with Presidents Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush. The title of his book tells a lot about Al. It was called Shooting from the Lip. Al was a gunslinger when it came to clever quips. There's so many to count. We don't want to recount some of them on the floor of the Senate. They'd probably be stricken from the record, but that's who Al Simpson was. He made you laugh. He also made you think. And that's what made Al so special. He took his service seriously, but he never took himself too seriously. Al and Ann returned to Wyoming after he retired from the Senate. Fortunately for Wyoming and our nation, that service did not end because they never really retired. Al enthusiastically served numerous groups and organizations which all have benefited from his presence. From his beloved alma mater, the University of Wyoming, to the world-renowned Buffalo Bill Historical Center, Al Simpson devoted his time, his talent, and his treasure. When Al saw an unmet need in his community, he worked to see that it was addressed. He was especially active in mentoring future leaders. It's no wonder that he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2022. It's the highest honor an American civilian can get for service to our country. He was a model of leadership for everyone, regardless of party. He did it all across Wyoming and through the years here in Congress. Once he said, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. Integrity, work ethic, incredible wit, Al truly leaves behind a legendary career. For Wyoming, Al is a native son, also a North Star and a rock star. For the United States Senate, Al's a leader, a legislative craftsman, and a principled lawmaker. For me, he was a mentor and friend to Ann, to their children, Bill and Colin and Sue, and I talked to Bill and Colin this morning, to their entire extended family. Join the nation in Wyoming in sending you our heartfelt condolences. You can take solace in knowing that the decades of work Al did to make Wyoming and our country a better place will be felt for generations to come.